Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Penscast Mailbag here at the Skating Penguin Network. I am your host, Garrett Bahana. Alongside me, as always, back from his sabbatical last week, he is a fellow contributing writer over at Pensburg.com, co-host of the Penscast here at the Skating Penguin Network. It's Robbie Noggle, and joining me as well is fellow co-host of the Penscast here at the Skating Penguin Network, Snail. As well, we are back to answer your mailbag questions as submitted by loyal listeners on Twitter. Again, for those who are interested, who are listening to this, maybe a longtime listener, or finding us for the first time, finding some Pittsburgh Penguins content on your podcasting platform of choice, you can submit questions that you want answered to us every Sunday. We will send out a mailbag tweet or mailbag post asking for your participation in these mailbag episodes, and you can stay up to date with all our latest releases and content and whatnot by following us on Twitter at PenguinsFFSN. And speaking of FFSN, which stands for Fans First Sports Network, we have something to bring to you, the loyal listeners. And we're not talking about hockey right now. We're talking about football. We're talking about American football. We're talking about the NFL. Are you listening right now? Are you a fan of an NFL team, one of the 32 teams across America? Would you love to attend your favorite team's week 1 game? Well, guess what? Listen up, because you're in luck. Fans First Sports Network is giving away 4 free tickets to the week 1 NFL game of your choice with a maximum cost of up to $5,000. Again, Fans First Sports Network is giving away 4 free tickets to any week 1 NFL game of your choice. Your favorite team, the Steelers. Snail lives in the Pacific Northwest. He's a Seahawks fan. It could be the Seahawks. It could be the Los Angeles Rams. It could even be the pathetic Cleveland Browns. It doesn't matter. 4 free tickets of up to $5,000. The rules to enter this contest are very simple. Go to contest.fansfirstsports.com and fill out all of the appropriate information. It'll take less than 3 minutes. That's it. Once you've done that, you have been officially registered to win 4 free tickets. Again, 4 free tickets to any week 1 NFL game. So what are you waiting for? Go enter for your shot at seeing your favorite team in action week 1. This contest will end on September 4th. And I will link to all appropriate information, whether you're listening to on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on Pensburg.com, I will have a link with all relevant information in this podcast post, so you can go to, again, contest.fansfirstsports.com, fill out all the appropriate information, and you are entered into a contest to see your favorite NFL team in week 1. Again, 4 free tickets, any week 1 NFL game, contest.fansfirstsports.com. All of the work out of the way there, we're going to get into the fun stuff now. We're going to talk about some questions. And this week we have 14 questions from a couple of different question askers. Question number 1 will go to Robbie. Question number 2 will go to Snail. I will take question number 3. We will repeat that cycle until all questions are answered. With that, Robbie is back in the loop this week. He gets question number 1. Question number 1 comes from Brian. Here is an interesting hypothetical talking about the Florida Panthers. Robbie, would you be for or against trying to acquire Spencer Knight? I know he stepped away and has entered the league's player assistance program, but if Spencer Knight is fully healthy, could he be a good 1B for Tristan Jarry?
It's an interesting hypothetical, but right now, even with Jarry under contract, there's still a bunch of question marks at the goaltending position for the Penguins, and I'm not sure if they need to spend assets to go get another question mark. Spencer Knight, who has the talent, could be good, but again, stepping away from the game and getting whatever issues he had sorted out through the player assistant program. Hopefully that helped him get through those troubles. But there's just so many question marks there already. Do you really need another one? I really think it's obviously Jarry is your one, and then it comes down to Andy Nedeljkovic. or I can't remember the other guy's name at 2. Obviously, Joel Blomqvist is a little too far away. He'll get playing time in the AHL. But, I mean, it's a great hypothetical. Maybe it's a wait-and-see kind of thing into the season if the goaltending gets really bad. But I just don't think you spend assets to add another question mark to a position where there's already a lot of question marks in between the pipes. So I'm fine with Jari and Nedeljkovic to start the season. Again, so much is going to be focused on Jari's health. Was that what was holding him back last year? We're going to find out here in the next couple of weeks. So Spencer Knight is a nice thing to think about. Maybe it's something that you toss around later in the season, but for the most part right now, I think you stick with the question marks you have rather than adding another one. Question number 2 again from Brian, and this one's going to Snail. With all the depth that Kyle Dubas has brought in, do you see there being enough competition to make Jeff Carter earn his spot in the lineup?
Dubas brought in quite a bit of depth. I was actually kind of just counting it up, and as far as like NHL caliber players, there's like 8 of them, and the bottom 6, there's 6, and we can't waive Jeff Carter without his permission, can't trade him without him waiving his no move clause. This is the last year. He's making a little over $3 million. I think there's a lot of incentive for Jeff Carter to show up in shape and really try to earn his spot. I think that, to be frank, it's like, I think that with all the depth that Dubas has brought in, there's going to be quite a bit of competition. Jeff Carter is either a center or a right winger. I don't think I've ever seen him play as off wing. And Dubas injected quite a bit of youth this offseason. So, Jeff is, I mean, this is probably obvious to him. He's going to have to show up and compete with a bunch of the young players that are hungry to prove that they earn a spot on this roster. And I think short and sweet, Jeff Carter's, this is going to be a big year to see what he's kind of got left in the tank. Let's see, question 3 here from Brian. Do you see any of the main guys in Wilkes-Barre taking the leap to become regulars with the Pens? Puustinen looks to have the potential if given the chance. Nylander as well.
Those are the 2 guys. Maybe Jonathan Gruden as well. I could maybe realistically see getting an extended look. It's funny that Brian asked this question. I'm actually in the process of writing up over at Pensburg.com. I'm writing up Valtteri Puustinen's top 25 under 25 article that will go live on Pensburg.com Wednesday morning, 6 a.m. Eastern. So that basically will give a recap of Puustinen's 2022-23 season. But going back over the last 2 seasons, Puustinen has been the Wilkes-Barre Scranton leading scorer over those last 2 seasons, 2021-22 and 22-23. So the offense is definitely there for Puustinen. The issue is Kyle Dubas has, as Snail mentioned, brought on a lot of external depth, either players that he knew and was familiar with in his time in Toronto or other unrestricted free agents with an emphasis on defense. And that is one aspect of Puustinen's game where it still may be lacking. The offense is definitely there. He has been a solid point producer since his time in Finland. Now transitioning over into the North American game, Puustinen has shown that he could probably be a reliable top 9, bottom 6 forward. If he irons out his defensive deficiencies, Puustinen absolutely could be a regular NHLer. Here's the problem, though, is that with all of the external additions that Dubas has brought in, it doesn't really leave a whole lot of openings for competition into training camp and into the regular season. Sure, I imagine Puustinen and Nylander will be competing with a lot of those extra bodies to fill out that bottom 6. And I even hypothesized that, maybe you could stick Puustinen up there on Sidney Crosby's left wing while Jake Gensel recovers from injury as the season starts, and you don't have to go the external route again, and you don't have to spend what little money you have left on the salary cap for a player like Thomas Tatar. So at the very least, Valtteri Puustinen will give the Penguins something of a rarity in their system, a young player who will be able to provide offense at the minor league level. And if given the chance on an extended basis, because he's only played 1 game in the NHL level, he could probably give you, I'd say, anywhere from 20 to 40 points if he played over an 82-game stretch in the NHL. For the time being, though, I think Puustinen will probably be in Wilkes-Barre Scranton to start the 2023-24 season. Nylander, because he's a right-handed, a right winger, maybe he gets the chance to stick. Again, a lot of these decisions about who's going to be in and out of the bottom six are going to transpire over the next month, 5-6 weeks until we get into October. So this is when those kinds of competitions are really going to amp up. But as far as Puustinen, I think he's deserving of an NHL roster spot. It's just tough because you have veteran players with big contracts who are cemented in their roles. You have Raquel and Riley Smith and Brian Rust. You have all of those guys on the wing who are already there and not going to go anywhere. Gensel when he gets back. So it's a bit of a crowded room right now, but he provides valuable organizational depth, does Puustinen, if he is recalled upon because of injury.
Assuming those 4 names are healthy come the first week in October, my best guess is going to be, I think you can pencil in P.O. Joseph. I think he played everything we saw last year. I think he is solidly on the third pairing. And then if I had to, looking at those last 3 names, Ty Smith, Mark Friedman, and Chad Ruhwedel, unless Smith or Friedman do something kind of out of this world, I really think that they're going to go with Chad Ruhwedel as the number 6. He has the trust of the coaching staff. They like what he does. He doesn't play high event hockey, which as a bottom pairing defenseman, that's completely fine. Just do your job, get it out of the zone, and just don't get caved in every time you're on the ice, basically. And I think POJ would definitely help him. POJ brings more of the offensive side of that, obviously. But again, I think it could be up for the taking if Smith and Friedman have a great training camp. I really think POJ is basically I don't want to say he's penned in there, but I think at the worst he's at least penciled in onto that bottom pairing, and who his partner is will depend on what those other 3 do in training camp. But I lean right now toward Chad Ruhwedel, unless Smith or Friedman do something that really just can't be ignored. But I think we kind of already know what Ruhwedel and Friedman bring. It's going to be more or less, can Smith finally find that game to unseat either of those 2? So if I was writing the lineup right now, I would have the bottom pairing as P.O. Joseph on one side and his partner to open the season. My best guess is Chad Ruhwedel. And then I think Friedman will probably remain with the big club if money works out, and Ty Smith will get playing time down in the American Hockey League with Wilkes-Barre. Question number 5 from Brian. What is your choice for most disappointing season in Penguins history?
Well, I mean, it's got to be this one that just happened, right? Snapping that 16 consecutive playoff appearances streak with across like the 4 major sports. I mean, that's pretty disappointing. But just for conversation's sake, I mean, I could have been Sid's rookie year too, with all the hype that Sid brought. Not making the playoffs that year. You could argue that that's a pretty disappointing season. For me personally, and like this might just kind of reflect how spoiled Penguins fans can be at times. I think this came to mind immediately when I read this question, and for me it was the 2013 playoffs, how that ended. When they acquired Iggy at the trade deadline and they got swept in the Eastern Conference Final by the Bruins. I just thought that was like the best roster ever assembled. Iggy, for a player that wasn't a Penguin, Iggy is like one of my favorite players of all time. And this was a couple of years after the golden goal Iggy assisted on to Sid, and I was just like, this is it. This is like the team. This is it. Like, this is like the pinnacle Penguins roster right now. And then to see them get swept by the Bruins, that one will always sting. So that's mine personally. I think it's really up for debate. I'd be curious, what do you guys think? I mean, this last season had to have been extremely disappointing, right?
I mean, I know this is an opinion-based question. You're wrong with your choices. I have my own, but I like Garrett answer first so I can tell him why he's wrong also.
Alrighty. The first one that came to my mind wasn't even last season. It was the one that Snail mentioned. It was the Bruins Eastern Conference final sweep. That's still, even to this day, has left a sore spot in my mind because of how stacked that roster was. But now I'm curious because Robbie just flat out saying both of us are wrong. So now I have to go, and I'll give the microphone over to Robbie. What is your least favorite season?
So I'm going to age myself with this. It's got to be 1993. It has to be the President's Trophy.
Yep. Uh-huh.
President's Trophy, longest winning streak in NHL history, three-peat, dynasty, whatever, all that gone with an overtime loss to the Islanders. That team was, yeah. I mean, I have one of the years pulled up here. This isn't exactly the same, but like Stevens, Lemieux, Yager, Francis, Tocchet was there. Again, it was as historically great as the teams that won the cup. It's just, I mean, that was the best of all three of those teams. They were healthy. I mean, Mario came back from cancer, won the scoring title after being down like 18 points with 20 games left in the season. It just, that is the, again, I 13, yeah, that year sucked. This year, I almost don't even consider this year as much of a disappointment now that everything that happened afterwards. And looking at it, this team was so broken and so the roster construction was so bad that they would have been fortunate to make the playoffs. So 2013, bad. 2012 was arguably maybe even better than the 2013 team. If they have any goaltending, they get past the Flyers and probably bury the Devils. But 93, again, aging myself a little bit, but just a tremendously devastating end to what should have been a third Stanley Cup in a row.
If my dad were recording instead of me, he would absolutely agree with you. He was there. He saw the first back-to-back. He still tells me to this day that 93 team, the fact that they didn't win, it's a very sore spot for him as well.
I've heard Ray Ferraro talk about that, and people have like, how did you guys, like the Islanders, how did you guys beat that Penguins team? And he was just like, I don't know, we shouldn't have. Like point blank. So yeah, I don't know. There's been a couple in recent memory, but 93, I guess, yeah. When you spin it that way, Robbie, I'd have to agree with you there. Let's go to question 6 now here. I think we're at question 6 from Brian. If you were an NHL player, what would your jersey number be?
Very simple, and it's cliche, but it is what it is. My jersey number would be 56. The date of my birthday, May 6th. I have no explanation other than that. So 56 would be good for a forward or a defenseman. But yeah, I'll hand it over. We'll go around the table. Robbie, what would yours be, and then Snail?
I thought about this one for a little while, and I kind of came back to the number I wore in high school for baseball. That was 14. That's really the only number I had that really sticks out to me. I had it my entire high school career, so I would say 14.
Probably have to go with 91. My birth year, 91. I also think 91 just like looks sharp, especially in hockey.
I mean, I could see that.
Alrighty. With that quick question out of the way, we'll head to question number. Wait, are we doing 7? Question number 7.
8.
Okay, yeah, that's okay. Well, we are going to Brian here for the next question. Who is the most underappreciated player from each of the 5 Stanley Cup winning teams?
So I'm going to give these in order here, starting in 91. And the problem with some of these earlier teams is they were so stacked that It's really hard to kind of go into the depths of this roster, but I'll give you some options here. You have to go with, I think, starting in 91. He is a Hall of Famer, but he was toward the end of his career at this point. Brian Trottier was such a integral part of like just a leadership. He had past cup experience. He knew what it took to win, and he only scored 7 points during that run, but he was such a glue piece to that roster, being able to come in and kind of teach some of these younger guys what it meant and what it was going to take to win a Stanley Cup. 91, 92, even though this team had Trottier on it, I'm going to kind of step out of – I'm not going to go back to that well again. And I'm going to go with – a couple names popped up here to me as well on this one. But I'm going to go with what Rick Tocchet brought to that team. Now, Tocchet was a great player at this point. He came over in a trade midseason. But Tocchet provided so much of what that team was missing. He was such a brutal, gritty player, but could score. He only played 14 games in that cup run, but he scored 19 points, including 6 goals. Another name to watch out for that year, though, kind of under the radar, Sean McEachran. Scored a big goal or a couple big goals in that playoffs as well. But if I'm picking one from that team, I'm going to have to go with Rick Tocchet on that one. Now, jumping forward to 2008, 2009, I was kind of split between two guys here, but I went with a guy that slightly better offensive numbers. I went with Tyler Kennedy. Kennedy scored 2 goals in that Stanley Cup final against the Red Wings, including the game winner in Game 6 that forced a Game 7. Just a tremendous player, a part of that great third line with Matt Cook and Jordan Stahl. And Kennedy, again, he kind of became a Pittsburgh boy after leaving the city. He's back here now. He lives in Pittsburgh. You'll see him doing commentary here and there, but I got to go TK for the 08-09 team. Shout out Mark Eaton, though. That was the other guy that was in contention for that nod. Now, moving on to 15-16, Stanley Cup number 4. A lot of great names to pick from here. But I'm going to have to go with Mr. Game 7, Brian Rust. We appreciate him much more now, obviously, but he was basically just a nobody when these playoffs came around. He had just come up through the system that year, scored 2 big goals against Tampa Bay in Game 7 to win that series and advance to the final. Just a very important player for the Penguins in that cup run, and obviously has become kind of a very important player throughout all of Penguins history. And wrapping it up here with 2016, 2017, again, a lot of good names to pick from here, but I'm gonna have to go with maybe somebody that we kind of forget about and go with Justin Schultz. He was the big time. He stepped up big time when Chris Letang went down this season with the neck injury, and when it was kind of clear that he was going to be out for the rest of the playoffs. Schultz stepped right in and delivered a masterclass performance, filled his role perfectly, scored a couple big goals, scored a big goal in Game 7 against the Senators to eventually help propel them to the final. But I got to go with Justin Schultz for this cup, the 5th and final cup. All right, this was question number 7 on our outline, but it's going to go to Snail now. What is one bold prediction each of you have for next season?
Well, I'm glad that all of you guys get to chime in as well, because my bold predictions, my hot takes have always just really come back to haunt me. But I'll be super candid here, and I've ruminated on this before this question was ever asked. And I think the Penguins, my bold prediction for this next season is I am guaranteeing no less than the Penguins are making the second round of the playoffs. I don't know about anything further than that, but they're not only making the playoffs, they're getting past the first round and into the second round. And I don't know, with the acquisition of Karlsson and the depth that they've added and just kind of the rejuvenation of having a general manager like Kyle Dubas implemented into the organization, I don't know. What do you guys think? Is that bold? Is that, with an addition like Karlsson, is that like too much to ask? What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, for a team that hasn't been in the second round since 2018, I don't think it's really that bold. I think that's pretty bold, even with the additions they made.
I agree. I slightly agree, but at the same time, I'm always thinking like it's Crosby and Malkin and Letang. Now they have Karlsson. My bold prediction was not really playoff related. It was that with the addition of Karlsson, Sidney Crosby will eclipse 100 points. 100, I'll say 100 plus points once again. I don't think it will be much further. I don't think he'll hit 110 or anything like that. But I think with the emphasis on offense now coming from the back end with Letang and Karlsson, I think that helps Crosby get him up to the 100 point plateau.
I like that.
I saw a lot of conversation this past week about whether or not Crosby can reach 100 points and what it needs to take to get there. But my bold prediction, and I'm going to really go out on a limb here, Tristan Jarry finishes top 5 in Vezina voting.
Oh, that is bold. Very bold.
Oh, boy.
I mean, one of us had to take something that's never been done before at the very least. So I'm going to go on a branch, say that he bounces back, he stays healthy, and he finishes top 5 in Vezina voting. Not saying he will be one of the finalists, but he will play well enough to be in that top 5 conversation or even in the Vezina conversation, but he will finish within top 5 of Vezina trophy voting this coming season.
And the Penguins will need that. They'll need that.
Yeah, I mean, if he's a Vezina, if he's in that position, the Penguins are easily a top 3 team in the Metro.
Yeah, and like to Snail's prediction, they will go. Absolutely. If he's in the top 5 of Vezina voting, they absolutely will make it into the second round, maybe even to the conference final. So yeah, that would be, out of all of the things the Penguins have going for them this season, that prediction right there may be the most important thing the Penguins need to fall their way this season. I'm not saying that Jarry needs to become a routine Vezina contender, but if he can get back to that level, all of the concerns I have about this team, really the vast majority of them go out the window.
Oh yeah, it's all goaltending this year. I think they really shored up the blue line and added some young depth, and they're going back to the well with Jarry. That's a great one, Robbie. Next question we have is from Brian, and it's our weekly food question. Okay, Brian asks, what is your go-to cereal?
I'm very curious to what Snail has to say, because he's already giggling behind the microphone. It's probably going to be like bran flakes with dusted sugar on top. But go-to cereal, I don't eat a lot of breakfast cereal. When I do eat it, though, I love a good bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios with a banana sliced in between, like into the cereal itself. So I think it's a nice, hearty, healthy breakfast. I'll take a bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios. As a matter of fact, tomorrow, on Tuesday, when this goes live, I'll be working 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. And every Tuesday, my breakfast routine will consist of me probably getting a bowl of cereal with a banana. So that'll be my go-to. That's typically my go-to as well. But I'll flip it over to Robbie, and then we'll see what atrocity Snail has. So Robbie, what's your go-to cereal?
Mine is Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and it has been for a very long time. There's obviously just like never-ending amounts of cereal that you can choose from, but I'm a Cinnamon Toast Crunch fiend. It is by far my favorite, and if I'm having to pick, that is going to be my number one all the time. But yeah, so I'm Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So I'm pretty basic that way. Nothing too crazy. Cinnamon
Toast Crunch is phenomenal. I haven't had it in a long time, but that stuff is like straight up That doesn't even have to be for breakfast. You could have that for.
Oh, I can eat that. I could eat that literally any time of day.
All right, so when I'm pouring up cereal, I'm pouring in a heaping amount of Seattle Granola Company's original flavor. It's just got, granola. It's got some almonds in there. It's got some coconut flakes. It's got a little flax. And then I give a little splash of any kind of oat milk. Nothing too crazy there, right?
It's the perfect response for the vegan on the staff to like. I don't even think can you veganize cereal any more than he's already done? Look, I love tearing him apart because he's a vegan and I know nothing about veganism, but I mean that just sounds like the perfect like hippie northwestern vegan kind of like it's just like prototypical. If I think of Seattle and I think of the Pacific Northwest, I couldn't even repeat what Snail just said. Something about Seattle granola and almonds and oat milk, all that stuff. I give him a hard time because of the vegan thing, but that is, that ticks all the boxes. That really does tick all the boxes for the kind of person that Snail is. So it's not out of the realm of craziness. It's pretty much par for the course, I think.
Yeah, not too crazy. And yeah, I guess it would be very on par for like someone from the Pacific Northwest. Maybe you guys out east imagine Seattle and there's just in your mind's eye there's a heaping bowl of some sort of granola product.
Yeah, you're out there hugging trees and it's a cold rainy day and maybe you grow a nice luscious long beard and you're out there chopping wood like a lumberjack. That's my stereotypical view of Seattle and the Pacific Northwest.
Oh man, you know what cereal I really miss though is like, do you remember Cookie Crisp?
Cookie Crisp is phenomenal too. They still make it.
I
It's
thought-
Oh, they
yeah, I
do?
thought so. Yeah, I'm pretty
I'm
sure.
almost 99% positive. I just saw it in stores not that long. I'm almost like 99% positive. That's the one with the dog on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
okay,
it a dog?
definitely.
Yeah,
Dog or a wolf.
yeah, yeah.
It's some kind of canine animal. But yeah, oh yeah, that's phenomenal. Absolutely.
Oh man, if you get Cookie Crisp for just a long, and you have it in the bowl for a long time.
You have to let it go because it's like,
Yes.
yeah, it needs to soak a little bit. Definitely.
Yes.
It does. That'll
Yes.
rip your mouth apart
Yeah.
if you eat it too
it's like,
soon.
It's like Cap'n Crunch. Like I enjoy Cap'n Crunch from time to time, but I cannot eat that on a regular basis because your upper mouth just gets torn to shreds.
Yeah, that'll leave you bloodied.
Alrighty, we're going back to Robbie here, I believe. Question 10. Here's a fun question from Brian. If you could have $10 million or be given $1 for every step you took in a year, which option would you choose?
So I mathed this one out just so everybody knows. So I went on the basis of the recommended 10,000 steps a day. If I took 10,000 steps a day for 365 days, I'm not getting anywhere close to $10 million. You would need to walk 1,000 days to get $10 million. If they're giving you if you're giving you $1 for every step you took, I am full on. Just give me the 10 million bucks. Easy. It's not even that. It's not even there. Yeah, the math was so clear on this. Give me the 10 million bucks. You could not walk enough in a year to equal $10 million. It would be I actually didn't math that one out. 10 million.
You know why Brian asked this question, right? He's a mailman. His job is to walk from point A to point B and deliver mails.
You'd have to walk almost 28,000 steps a day.
Oh my
for
God.
365 days to get to accumulate $10 million.
No, Garrett's right. Brian's asking this because he probably thinks this every single day while he's delivering mail.
I don't think I guarantee. I know Brian probably walks a lot, but I don't know if he's pumping out. And this is including Saturday and Sunday too. So I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of steps. I'd like to see if Brian could map out like roughly what he does in a day mail carrying. I would like to map that out, but I just give me the 10 million. Question number 11, again from Brian here. What do you think Jari's workload will look like this season?
Well, I mean, they gave him the contract. They're going back to the well, like I said earlier, with Jari as the main man in the net. I think we're kind of phasing out of. We're not really seeing a whole lot of like 60 game starters anymore. That's kind of like a unicorn in this day and age in the game right now. I don't think Jari, with his injuries and everything, I just can't see him. I mean, I think I can't really even give you a number. If he stays healthy, he's going to obviously be starting a majority. I think Nedeljkovic is going to get a fair amount of games in here. I'd be curious to know what do you guys think? What even is kind of like the modern like workload for a goalie that's not like the old school like 60 game starters? Is it like almost a split?
I don't even know that was the first thing. If Jari's healthy, that's what I was thinking he was going to play, was like 55, 60 games, and that would leave.
Oh, you do?
That's what I thought. I mean, I could be completely off base here. I mean, Snail's right. You do have to take his injury history into account. But I really didn't think giving Nedeljkovic, assuming he's the backup, more than 20 games. I mean, he does have starting experience. He's won at this level before, but I mean, given Jari's prior All-Star history, I didn't think 60 games was out of the realm of craziness, but hey, I'm no goalie coach. So, I mean, that's what I thought would be 55, 60 and give the backup the remaining 20-ish. That's what I thought at least.
Okay, well, maybe that wouldn't be that crazy. I guess since 2019, his games played was 33 in 2019-20, 21 or 20 and 21. He played 39 games. 21-22, he actually started 58. So yeah, that's the majority of the games. I can't believe that. And then in 22-23, he started in 47 games. So maybe I'm crazy. Maybe he will be a 6 if he's healthy and he's feeling good and he's playing well. That's another thing. He's got to be playing well. Maybe he is that 60 game starter, and then you give the rest to Nedeljkovic. Nedeljkovic is interesting too, because I think he was the starter in Carolina for a while, a couple of years ago. I mean, if Nedeljkovic gets hot, you could see a dip in Jari starts and going with the hot hand. That's how I see it shaking out. If you guys think differently, I'd be curious to know if Robbie or Garrett, what you guys think. But that's maybe he is like going to be 45 to 60 games.
Yeah, I don't see really any scenario. Like you said, Nedeljkovic had prior experience in Carolina. That's true. I mean, Jari would have to completely crater into the ground for Nedeljkovic to go on an extended run as the starter. You're not paying Jari all of this money on a fresh contract, even if he is struggling. I think Mike Sullivan's the kind of coach where you have to get him out there eventually. You have to let him work through whatever. If he is going through some issues mentally, if he's having a bad stretch of games, you have to get him out there anyway. What other option do you have? You have Nedeljkovic, yeah, sure. But you're not paying Jari north of $5 million to ride the bench and let journeyman Alex Nedeljkovic take all of those starts away. So it's pretty much ride or die, Tristan Jari, and Nedeljkovic is there to mop up any other sorts of messes, second halves of back-to-backs, that sort of thing.
Yeah, very true. Up in Toronto, they kind of had the same thing. They signed former Penguin, or they traded for former Penguin Matt Murray, and he was making the majority of the money in net. And then by the end of the season, it was what's his name? The goalie that was from DC, Samsonov. So it's not unheard of, but yeah, let's just hope that Jari, I mean, I would love it. I feel like I give Jari a lot of shit on this podcast, but like, I hope he comes back healthy, and I hope he's a stud for us. Like, I hope he starts 60 games and there's never even a wavering of confidence in him in there. Okay, move on from that question. Kim from Denmark, he would like to know, would you take Mitch Marner next summer if possible? And if yes, how much is he worth in salary? I would love to have him in a Penguins jersey. And the same question about William Nylander.
All right. We're talking about the two prime possible candidates. to maybe depart the Toronto Maple Leafs. I love getting reckless about this sort of thing. And it's funny, this question comes in after Austin Matthews signs his recent 4-year extension with the Maple Leafs. He's not going anywhere. I can't sit here and pretend I know the inner workings of the Maple Leafs, but if there's one player who I think out of that core that gets moved, I think it's John Tavares. I think the Maple Leafs will invest their salary cap into Mitch Marner, Nylander, and Austin Matthews and build around them because they are younger than John Tavares. Again, I don't know what kind of salary cap gymnastics you'd have to do because I know Tavares makes a lot of money and just about every team is up against the salary cap, but I don't see any scenario in which Nylander and Marner both depart Toronto. Between the two players, between Nylander and Marner, I would prefer Marner over Nylander. I think both are exceptional top six forwards. I think Marner is just that much better. Contract comparables, looking at William Nylander, he is in the final year of his deal with a cap hit of $6.962 million with a modified no trade clause. What are we talking about? Let's see. I think Marner gets somewhere on his new contract. Maybe he gets somewhere around 11 to 13 million. Right now, his current cap hit is 10.903, and he has 1 year left after this season through the 2024-25 season. So looking at Marner's next deal, Marner's next deal, I think it's going to be a raise about 12.5. Now, I don't know. It's tough to gauge that because I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a Maple Leafs fan. I'll say anywhere from 11 to 13 million, given that the salary cap is going to go up. For Nylander, maybe because he is making considerably less than Marner. Marner's making almost 11 million. Nylander is not even just about making 7 million. So that's a difference of 4 million. For Nylander's next deal, maybe they get him to meet around 8.5 or 9, maybe 9.5, somewhere around there. 9.5 million for, I don't know, what's the max you can give a contract? 7 years, 8 years? I'd imagine. Yeah. So you're probably going to see, I don't think that's crazy for both of those deals. Both of those guys are going to get raises. How they're going to fit those guys under the Maple Leaf salary cap and still build a competitive team around those three, well, that'll be the fun part watching as an outsider. But I don't think Nylander and Marner are going anywhere. Now that Matthews has signed for the long term, he's in this for the long haul. I think those two other pieces are crucial to the Maple Leafs' success. Question number 13. I believe this is my question to ask to Robbie.
Yep.
Okay. Kim from Denmark. We're going back to our friend from Denmark here. If you can't choose Pittsburgh, where would you think the best atmosphere is in the NHL? And on the flip side, where is the worst atmosphere in the league?
So I think it's been pretty well understood that Montreal is right up there. I'd love to attend a game in Montreal, even if the Penguins weren't the other team, the opposing team in that game. I just think, again, historic-wise as well, being able to attend a game in Montreal would be super cool. And the fans are always, if you watch a game on TV, you can tell how into it and how insane and chaotic they are. So I had to put Montreal up there. A couple years ago, it's back in 2016, actually, I was in Nashville during the Stanley Cup playoffs. It was the second round, and the Predators were playing the Sharks in the Western Conference semifinals, and we were down there, and my dad and I decided to buy tickets and go as neutrals, and this was really before they kind of, like, the next year's the year they made the run to the final against the Penguins. So they weren't really they didn't have the kind of identity as a completely raucous crowd yet. But I will say that building was very, very loud and very, very into it. Very, very good crowd. The dude in front of me had a jersey. Its number was 69, and the name on the back of the jersey was Bone.
Good Lord.
I actually have a picture. If I can find it, I'll send it to you guys because it just seared into my brain because it's one of the funniest things ever. And I wore I wore a Penguins hat to the game. but a very good atmosphere, very into it, very knowledgeable fan base. And this is really before the catfish things took off. So they were just very kind of like loud, very cheered the entire game. Nashville eventually won in overtime, and it was a really great atmosphere. So I had to put that up there as well. Also, Bridgestone Arena, the coldest building you will ever be inside. It was, yeah. I mean, hockey arenas are cool to begin with. This building was, I mean, like icy. It was so damn cold in that building. And worst atmosphere, I mean, I get you had to put Arizona in there, I guess. I mean, I didn't get to watch too many games in their little tiny college arena, but maybe that actually makes the atmosphere better because you quote unquote sell out and you fill that place. It gets a little bit louder than a empty 20,000 seat arena. So yeah, I'll put Arizona as the worst in there, I guess. Okay, 14. Question 14. Last but not least, it's from Linus J. And this one's going to Snell to wrap us up here. Who is again? This might not be a Snell question. It might be more for Garrett to answer, but I'll let Snell take a crack at it. Who is the best musical act, either band or solo artist, from Pittsburgh? And Linus mentions Anti-Flag, the Traditionals, Wiz Khalifa, Christina Aguilera, if she counts, and Mac Miller. Any other names are also, I guess, can be mentioned as well, but that's just some examples that he gave.
Yeah, leave it up to me, the guy from Seattle, to judge who is the best musical act to come out of your guys' city. So I did a little bit of research on this. Also, is Christina Aguilera from Pittsburgh?
Yes.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big get.
Yep.
That's awesome. So this is this is more for you guys. I'm really curious to hear, but I did some research, and like the two bands that I actually listen to, they're on my Spotify, and if they ever are touring in this area, I'm going to go see them. I thought they were from Pittsburgh, but one's from Kingston, Pennsylvania, and the other one is from Yardley. So I know Kingston is not close to Pittsburgh, right?
I'm not familiar with Kingston.
No,
Oh, really?
Nope,
Okay. It looks like it's by Wilkes-Barre. And then, do you know where Yardley is?
Nope.
Okay. So I have nothing to go off of that. I guess you could say, well, what is the best musical act as far as like personal tastes go? Some of these bigger names here, like Anti-Flag, the Traditionals, Wiz Khalifa. I mean, as far as like success goes, I mean, it would have to be probably like Wiz Khalifa or like Christina Aguilera, right?
Yeah.
That's probably the best bet. Yeah. I mean, Mac Miller was there, and then until he passed away, I think if he wouldn't have passed, I think he would have taken a step even beyond like Wiz. Even I really think that he was on the precipice of being a major player in the music scene.
I think too. Anti-Flag is that's more of my cup of tea in terms of musically speaking, but yeah, judging by success, I agree with Robbie's take about Mac Miller until he unfortunately passed away. Wiz Khalifa is recognizable the world over because of his contributions to rap. Christina Aguilera, I think she I don't know if she's still was she a judge on The Voice at one point or one of those?
Yeah, she was. Yeah.
I don't know if she still is or not, but yeah, she is an international star as well. I have something I'd like to say. Is it a crime if you insult Nirvana or consider Nirvana overrated? Now, like if I were to say that, would the guy from the Pacific Northwest would he have some beef with me if I said that Nirvana was an overrated musical act, or would he agree with me? That I'm curious. I know we're veering off from Pittsburgh, but I wanted to get some thoughts. Like, am I breaking the law by saying Nirvana is bad from the guy that lives in Washington?
Absolutely not. Say what you want about Nirvana. That's not a band that's going to get people too riled up over here. I think that, being somebody who actually like really loves grunge music and really embraces the Seattle sound, as they call it, Nirvana is super overrated. Like they are so overrated here. So say what you want about Kurt and Nirvana. That's not going to strike a chord with me personally, and probably most people from Seattle. But I think there's some other bands, maybe it's a little bit smaller ones, that if you were to talk bad about, then that gets our undies in a bunch.
Because I love Dave Grohl. I think Dave Grohl is just one of the coolest dudes ever. He seems like such a nice dude, always willing to interact with fans. I've always wanted to go to a Foo Fighters concert and just watch Dave Grohl do his thing. So, but like Nirvana, I get it. Like they were there and sort of put Seattle on the map, for lack of a better term, and sort of brought grunge to the mainstream. So I'm not discounting their achievements, because their achievements are worthy of the success that they got, and their reputation lives on well after Kurt Cobain's death. But it's just I just don't see it. I mean, we could do a whole podcast episode. I'd love to get both of your guys' thoughts on Nickelback too. Like, Nickelback was just before my time, but Robbie, I know Robbie, you're 5 to 7 years older than me. I know you lived through that Nickelback surge in popularity. And Snail too, you're what, 31, 32? I know you lived through that too. So I'm the youngest one here. Are you pro Nickelback, both of you? Are you pro Nickelback or anti Nickelback?
I'll let Robbie go first. I'm curious.
Yeah, I definitely grew up like Nickelback was absolutely massive when I was in high school. Like, they were like the mainstream metal band of the early mid 2000s, kind of. And I never really had an opinion on them. Really, I just fine. Like, okay, they're fine. They're there. They exist. They're fine. I mean, they sold, like, for what they did, it's no surprise they sold a ton of records. I just think they had like a sound, like you knew who Nickelback was. Everybody listened to Nickelback because it was one of those, like, they were just so big that like you just listened to them and you couldn't really avoid their music. And for me, it was just like, okay, they're fine. They're a metal band. Again, I'm not a big audiophile like some people are. So for me, it's just, they're fine. Like, if I know some people were repulsed by them, but I know now that like these last few years, they've really kind of made, like, I don't want to call it a comeback, but maybe they're appreciated in a different light now. For the most part, they all seem like good dudes, so I can't really say anything negative about them personally. But to me, they're fine. I don't necessarily change the channel when a song comes on if I'm listening to a station that they would be played on. So to me, they're fine. But I know to some music heads, it might just be sacrilegious to listen to them. But I do know they've kind of made a bit of a resurgence in popularity these last 2 or 3 years.
So I was one of those guys that was like slightly repulsed by like Nickelback growing up when they were kind of first hitting like mainstream stardom. It was like when being someone who grew up in Seattle or whatever and having kind of like, I mean, I don't think you could really call them grunge, but like they had some like grunge-esque songs. It was always kind of like, I can hear they're kind of like copying that flavor, whatever. But then to your point, Robbie, about them, their resurgence right now, they're hitting like a major upswing. You have, I think, younger generations, maybe Garrett feels this way, maybe he doesn't, but I know that some younger generations almost like them ironically, I think. Like, they're almost like wearing Nickelback, like old band tees and stuff out of pure irony.
Yeah,
And then, but they also, right now, new metal, like, like Limp Bizkit and whatever your, like System of a Down, Slipknot, like that kind of music is also in an odd way right now, I believe, kind of ironically and also unironically by different age groups being listened to, like, again. And they kind of just released something within the last, year or so, and they've kind of got like a new metal sound to them. And I think they're just kind of like, I think they've won the hearts of like a lot of the younger generations.
Yeah, what really just kind of like disappoints me is like, so we grew up with them. Now the new generation, is finding them suitable, but they claim that they're the ones that actually appreciate them.
Huh.
Like you didn't discover Nickelback. Like it's not a new. It's like a 15-year-old today listening to Coldplay and being like, "Oh, I listened to this band I found." No, like I grew up with Coldplay. like I grew up with Nickelback. You didn't discover Nickelback. I was
True.
there. I was there
True.
since the beginning. Like, I mean, and there was kind of I had a discussion with someone that there's a lot this generation, which I guess you call Gen Z, Gen Alpha, like the one after the millennials. It's kind of like repurposing what our generation did and claiming it as their own. Like, buddy, no, like you didn't grow up like none of what you're doing is unique. Like we created that. It just died off a little bit, and then you're bringing it back because you understand how cool it was. It wasn't cool when we were doing it because Gen X and stuff hated it, but now it was always cool because you're copying it.
Also, it was harder for us to establish those things. The new generation has like the internet and like an app for everything. Dude,
Yeah.
like sometimes I talk about like finding like a band when I was quite a bit younger or whatever. Dude, you had to go dig through archives. You might have to go to the library and just like listen to like hours of like records or CDs or tapes to find like one good song that you later illegally download on LimeWire and you probably get poison your computer. Yeah, it was harder. Anyways, we could Robbie, we could gatekeep like all day. I feel like this could be a whole podcast.
I'm very anti gatekeeping, but it's so easy now with what spot and like I mean we even came up with like we had LimeWire, which was like basically just dumping your computer in acid.
It was AIDS for your computer.
Yes, and then we had iTunes, but you had to pay for every single song. Now I don't know if you did torrenting. We did torrenting, torrents. Like that was more college, for me, but. Like now, like we never had Spotify or Apple Music where you paid a monthly fee and you can listen to like literally every song in history.
Or what about like, dude, even a step before that, like, did you ever like put an empty cassette in and record live radio?
We had, now see, we didn't do that as much. Now we had cassettes. We had a bunch of cassettes that were already like, just like a CD you bought with the entire album on it. I didn't do too much, recording with cassettes, but I did burn a lot of CDs. Garrett, do you know how to burn a CD?
Yes, I have absolutely burned CD. It died out when I was doing it. This was probably 10 to 12, maybe 15 years ago. When I was doing it, it was like the tail end of it before those on-demand music services came about. Okay. But yes, I burned CDs from iTunes. Absolutely.
You're not quite that young.
No, yes, I was not around for the LimeWire craze and Napster.
Oh gosh, holy
it's a shame.
Shit.
I was not around for that.
Download a song and like make a phone call, and it takes like a week to download a song. I still probably have mine somewhere on an old hard drive or something. All the music I downloaded. If I can find it, I will absolutely try to bring it up and see what all I had downloaded. I guarantee you I still have to have it somewhere. Maybe it's on an old iPod, maybe. It was LimeWire was not good for your computer.
That was the Wild West back then, man.
Oh, there was no rules. There are no rules.
Come for the hockey discussion and stay for the enlightened tales of early to mid 2000s music usage on the early days of the internet.
I could talk about like 90s pop culture, about like cartoons and just life back then. There's so much stuff I'll see pop up, like 30 things from your childhood that you probably forgot about, and I'm like, I know like literally 28 of these things.
Like I never forgot those things either.
No, I didn't forget them.
Bold of you to assume I forgot.
I maybe memory hold them, but they never like I didn't have to like think about if I ever used them or not. No, I could talk about 90s pop culture and like early 2000s pop culture forever because that's so nostalgic, and I'm a nostalgic person. So, yeah.
So Garrett, do you like Nickelback? Ironic, like we never got to this.
The question was never asked. I do not have a problem with Nickelback. I love the fact that now, as Robbie was kind of describing, my generation coming up, like I agree with Robbie that you don't just discover Nickelback because they've been around since the turn of the millennium. So it's not like I'm sitting here and saying, "Wow, this band is incredible." I love the fact that now Gen Z are giving these funny labels to music genres. They're calling Nickelback divorced dad rock, which
No.
That's actually kind of perfect, actually.
I think it's absolutely.
I want to know who else they put in that category because that is fantastic. I'm not married, never have been, but that is absolutely fantastic. I'd like to know, like, if we could get like the 50 biggest bands from like the 90s and early 2000s, like, and just give them to like a Gen Z and be like, here, I want you to categorize all these by whatever weird labels your generation uses.
But here's the thing. Look, I've made my love and adoration for music and pop punk and Blink 182. I've made that all known on prior episodes of the podcast. Maybe it's just because I grew up with an older sister who's 6 years older than me. She lived through that.
Yeah.
And my brother-in-law is the same age as her. And so maybe their music tastes sort of were passed on to me. But that's strictly what I listen to. I listen to 90s and early 2000s music. Like I don't listen to stuff from today. I rarely, if ever, turn on the radio and listen to like the new hits of 2022 and 2020. I just don't do that. But as far as Nickelback is concerned, I unironically like them and I respect them for what they muddled through a lot of shit, even up until today.
That's very fair.
They were a meme, weren't they? Weren't they like a meme?
Yes.
Oh, they were like
memes.
Yeah, they were they were a meme, and they were derided by. I wouldn't say it was really bad by like hardcore metalheads or music heads, whatever you want to call them, like the audiophiles, the ones that are very, very into music. They were the ones that really derided them and gave them a bad name. But I think for like your just run of the mill people, they were probably. I mean, you heard them everywhere. They were everywhere. You couldn't listen to the radio. You go like 5 minutes down the street, and the odds of you getting a Nickelback song on the radio were like at least 40%. They were everywhere. And maybe a part of it was oversaturation as well. I could definitely understand that. Like if they just play one all the time, like okay, excuse me, somebody else. But yeah, they're completely fine. Completely fine. Completely acceptable music.
They're okay.
They're fine. Yeah. And sometimes that's all you need to be as a band. They're fine, but they made millions.
Yes.
They sold millions of records. And that's fine. If you make fine music, but you get enough that you make like millions of dollars, then you've lived the dream.
Yep. I don't need my music to break barriers or break boundaries. Consider what I listen to. I know pop punk isn't it's not everyone's cup of tea, that kind of music, that kind of trashy music from the late 90s and early 2000s. But the thing about this is it's all subjective. Like everyone who like I'm almost anticipating Brian to have a follow-up tweet next week talking about the music that because I wonder if he does listen to music on his mail routes. But
this was a question from Ryan.
Yeah, I know it was from Linus.
Oh, okay.
So even if Linus wants to follow up and give his thoughts on the music that he listens to as well, it's weird how a band like Nickelback was so hated and became, to Robbie's point, maybe it was oversaturation, but now it's like what's old is new again. And everything that was popular in the mid to late 90s and early 2000s is through my generation coming back into popularity. And it's like that cycle happens all the time with a lot of stuff, but it's funny to live that in real time now and see what was fun during Snail and Robbie's era growing up, and now like they're witnessing it again as grown men, and I'm really witnessing this wave for the first time.
It's like how like Gen Z thinks that they discovered Kate Bush after watching that Stranger Things.
Yeah, Kate Bush is a big one. There's been so many. You could make a list out of people who believe that they just discovered, especially this Gen Z or whatever, they discovered quote unquote whatever artist you want to put down there. But yeah, that Kate Bush. I mean, that's a song from like '85, and it went to number one. Like, it was a song from like 1985. You can discover anything.
Well, do we have any other thoughts on the music industry before we get out of here?
No, but we just talked about that for like 20 minutes.
But we could. I would love to keep talking about that. But dude, I actually saw we should get off the music because I feel like we could record another hour gatekeeping and talking about bands and whatnot we like from our childhood. But dude, I saw a piece of news this morning that I thought maybe we should touch on quick. And like, if you guys don't want to talk about this and shoot from the hip, then this will never see the light of day anyways. But I saw that the Penguins owners, Fenway Sports Group, are going to buy AT&T Sportsnet Pittsburgh.
Supposedly, yes, that's what the rumor is. Yeah, that would be October 1st. It looks like that would go into effect. Fenway Sports Group owns NES and New England Sports Network, which is NESN. They cover the Red Sox and the Bruins. Again, FSG obviously owns the Red Sox, and if they do buy AT&T Sportsnet, now if they change the name, whatever, but it does look like they're in the process of buying it, which would mean they control the Penguins broadcast and maybe even the Pirates, depending on what kind of deals are worked out. So now one thing they do as well with streaming, it can be hard to get regional sports networks. They do offer a streaming service just for their sports online and stuff. So that's something to keep an eye on if you don't have cable, or if you live out of market like Snell does. You could buy a monthly or yearly package to watch Penguin games locally from the local regional sports network.
So when I read this, all I could think of is, what does this mean for me?
Well, for you, it probably wouldn't. Like, we would still get it on normal cable here as a regional sports network, I believe. And then they offer basically a streaming service just for like the Red Sox and Bruins. That's what they stream.
So it'd be like an app? Like you'd get an app of some sort?
It'd be a standalone like streaming thing. Yeah.
I'm on board with that. That makes it kind of easy. Because, dude, it's so weird. Out here, there's a blackout that happens in Seattle, and it's so weird. I can watch when the Penguins play in Seattle the one time a year they do. But whenever the Penguins are in Columbus, I can't watch those games. It's like regionally blacked out for some reason.
Huh.
I did not even know that FSG, like, I was just not connected to social media today. So that news, I was learning in real time that FSG was in the process of purchasing AT&T Sportsnet, which makes sense given the financial struggles of the regional sports networks. But yeah, I wonder if we're going to see NESN in Pittsburgh, which would be kind of weird, but that will be a conversation I'm sure we'll touch on that either in a news episode or in another mailbag question. The potential for NESN to come to the Pittsburgh region as Fenway Sports Group really gets down and dirty now with their man Kyle Dubas and the Pittsburgh Penguins as we inch ever closer to training camp and preseason. We have rambled long enough talking about hockey and music and pop culture and all of those things. We'll wrap up this episode of the Penscast mailbag right here. Before we get out of here, let's do one last read through and talk about the current promotion going on at Fans First Sports Network. If you are a fan of any NFL team and you want to attend your favorite team's Week 1 game, you can do so by entering a contest. Fans First Sports Network is giving away 4 free tickets to the Week 1 game of your choice for up to $5,000 US. The rules to enter this contest are very simple. Go to contest.fansfirstsports.com and fill out all the appropriate information. Bing, bang, boom. You are in the contest and registered to win, again, 4 free tickets to any Week 1 NFL game. Again, contest.fansfirstsports.com. More information will be linked into any article or streaming platform that you're listening to as well. Contest ends September 4th, 2023. Alrighty, for Robbie Noggle, for Snail, I have been Garrett Bahana. Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Skating Penguin Network and the Penscast. We will talk to all of you again next week.